The scream that tore through Thornbury Manor at 3 in the morning wasn't human, and everyone who worked there knew better than to investigate. Olivia Ashford knew the rules. She'd memorized them her first day on staff 6 months ago. Never enter the West Wing after sunset. Never ask questions about the master's business. Never look him directly in the eyes unless he commands it. And above all, never make a sound that might disturb him. The manor employed 37 people, and every single one of them moved through the halls like ghosts, silent and efficient. The pay was extraordinary enough that Olivia could send money home to her sister and still afford her own small apartment in the city. The cost was simply her voice during working hours and her curiosity at all times. She'd never seen the master. Lord Silvanus Vladimyr was a name whispered with equal parts reverence and terror, a recluse who hired staff through intermediaries and communicated only through written notes left on silver trays. The housekeeper said he'd lived in Thornbury Manor for over 2 centuries, though that was obviously an exaggeration meant to add mystery to an already strange employer. The groundskeepers claimed he never ate, never slept, and never smiled. The kitchen staff prepared elaborate meals that were sent up to the West Wing and returned untouched, except for the wine always red, always consumed completely. Olivia didn't believe in fairy tales or ghost stories. She believed in hard work, in keeping her head down, and in the fact that eccentric rich people did eccentric rich things. If Lord Vladimir wanted to live like a hermit in his crumbling Gothic mansion on the outskirts of the city, that was his business. She was just there to clean. The East Wing was her domain, 12 bedrooms that no one ever used, 3 bathrooms with fixtures that probably cost more than her car, a library with books in languages she couldn't read, and a ballroom with chandeliers that took her 4 hours to dust properly. She worked the night shift because it paid double and because her sister needed surgery. Sophie was only 19, diagnosed with a rare heart condition that insurance barely covered. Every pound Olivia earned went into that fund, and she'd scrub floors until her hands bled if it meant her sister got to live. Tonight was like any other night. She'd arrived at 11, changed into her uniform, a simple black dress that the head housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, insisted all maids wear, and gathered her supplies. The manor was always cold, even in summer, and always too quiet. Her footsteps echoed as she walked through the marble corridors, pushing her cart with its bottles of polish and stacks of fresh linens. She started in the library, as she always did. It was her favorite room despite its size, floor-to-ceiling shelves packed with leather-bound volumes, a fireplace large enough to stand in, and windows that overlooked the wild gardens below. The moon was full tonight, casting silver light across the Persian rugs and the mahogany furniture. Olivia worked methodically, dusting each shelf, careful not to disturb the book's arrangement. The manor might be silent, but her mind never was. She thought about Sophie, about the doctor's appointment next week, about whether they'd found a donor yet. She thought about her mother, who'd passed 3 years ago and would have known exactly what to say to make everything feel less terrifying. She thought about how strange it was to spend her nights in this beautiful, empty place, surrounded by luxury while her sister lay in a hospital bed. Without realizing it, she started to hum. It was an old song, something her mother used to sing when Olivia and Sophie were small. A lullaby about moonlight and roses, about a girl who danced with shadows. Her voice was soft at first, barely audible, but as she moved to the next shelf, the humming turned to quiet singing. Under the moon's gentle light, where the roses bloom bright, a maiden danced alone in the garden of stone. The words felt right in this place, in this haunted mansion with its cold halls and colder master. She sang while she worked, her voice growing stronger, filling the empty library with warmth. She'd always loved singing, had been in choir before her mother got sick and everything fell apart. It felt good to use her voice again, even if no one was listening. She didn't hear the door open, didn't sense the figure that appeared in the doorway, still as death, watching her with eyes that glowed faintly red in the darkness. Silvanus Vladimyr hadn't felt anything in 273 years. Not joy, not sorrow, not anger or hope or despair. He'd felt hunger, of course, the constant gnawing need for blood that defined his existence, but that wasn't an emotion. That was survival. He'd been turned during the reign of George III, transformed against his will by a vampire who'd wanted a companion and instead created a monster who killed her within a week of his transformation. He'd spent centuries learning control, building power, establishing himself as one of the 12 vampire lords who governed the night. He ruled the northern European territories from his manor, conducted business with other vampires through messengers, and avoided humanity as much as possible. Humans were food, nothing more. They lived and died in the blink of an eye while he remained, unchanging, unfeeling, immortal. He hadn't smiled since the night he died, hadn't laughed, hadn't felt his heart beat or his lungs truly fill with air. He existed, and that was enough. Until tonight. The sound reached him in his study, where he was reviewing territory disputes and blood trade agreements. At first, he thought he'd imagined it a voice, female, singing. No one sang in his manor, his staff knew better. But there it was again, clearer now, floating through the halls like something out of a dream he'd forgotten he could have. He moved without thinking, faster than any human eye could track, following the sound to the library. And there she was. A woman, a maid, based on her uniform, standing on a step stool to reach the higher shelves, singing while she worked. She was curved and soft, where vampire women were angular and hard, her brown skin warm against the cold moonlight, her hair pulled back in a bun that was coming loose. She moved with unconscious grace, swaying slightly to her own melody, completely unaware that she was being watched. Silvanus stood frozen in the doorway. Something in his chest, something that hadn't moved in nearly 3 centuries, tightened. The song was beautiful, but it wasn't just that. It was the life in her voice, the emotion, the way she sang like she meant every word. It was the fact that she was here, in his manor, bringing light into darkness without even trying. He should have been furious. She was breaking the most basic rule. But he couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't do anything but watch and listen as she reached the end of a verse. And though she danced with shadows deep, the moon promised she would keep a love that conquered even death with her first and final breath. Olivia turned to climb down from the step stool and froze. There was a man in the doorway. No, not a man. Even in the dim light, she could see that he wasn't human. His skin was pale as marble, his hair white as snow, and falling past his shoulders in waves that looked like they'd been spun from silver. He wore black from head to toe, an old-fashioned suit that somehow looked both ancient and timeless, but it was his eyes that stopped her heart. Red. Glowing faintly red, fixed on her with an intensity that made her forget how to breathe. Lord Vladimyr, it had to be, and she'd just broken the cardinal rule. "I'm sorry," she gasped, nearly falling off the stool in her haste to get down. "I'm so sorry, my lord. I didn't mean I forgot, please. I need this job. I'll never sing." His voice was like frost-given sound, beautiful and deadly. Olivia's words died in her throat. "What?" "Sing the rest." He hadn't moved from the doorway, but his presence filled the room like winter itself. The song. Finish it. This had to be a test or a game before he fired her. But his expression was impossible to read, not angry, not amused, just intensely focused. And something in his tone made it not quite a command, though it was clear he was used to being obeyed. Olivia's hands trembled as she stepped down from the stool. "My lord, I shouldn't have. Please." The word was so unexpected, so strangely vulnerable coming from this creature who looked like death personified, that Olivia found herself nodding. She cleared her throat, clasped her shaking hands together, and sang. The shadows loved her just as true, and gave her more than humans knew, immortal night and endless time, a love beyond the bounds of rhyme. So when the morning came to steal, the moon's promise to reveal, she chose the darkness, chose the deep, and in his arms she fell asleep. Her voice wavered at first, but grew stronger as she continued. She'd always been able to lose herself in music, and even with those red eyes watching her, she found the melody again. When she finished, the silence that followed felt almost sacred. Silvanus realized he was smiling. The muscles in his face felt strange, unused, but the expression was unmistakable. He was smiling for the first time in 273 years, and he couldn't stop. "What is your name?" The question came out softer than he'd intended. "Olivia Ashford, my lord." She dropped into a curtsy that was clumsy but earnest. "I truly am sorry for disturbing you. It won't happen again." "You work the night shift in the East Wing." It wasn't a question, but she nodded anyway. "Yes, my lord. 6 months now. And you sing while you work. I not usually. I forgot myself tonight. I know the rules, I swear I do, and I've never broken them before. I want you to forget them." He took a step into the room, and Olivia instinctively stepped back. He noticed and stopped, something flickering in his expression. "I want you to sing, every night, while you work." Olivia stared at him. "I don't understand." "It's not a difficult request, Miss Ashford. You will continue your duties as before, but you will sing. Whatever songs you know, as loudly as you like." He paused, then added, "I will triple your salary." Triple. The word echoed in Olivia's mind. Triple her already generous salary would mean Sophie's surgery was covered, completely. With money left over for recovery, for medications, for whatever came after, it seemed impossible, insane. Why would he pay her to sing? Why? The question slipped out before she could stop it, and she immediately regretted it. You didn't question Lord Vladimyr, but he didn't seem angry. If anything, that strange, almost smile deepened. "Because I wish it. Is that not reason enough?" "Of course, my lord. Yes, thank you. I'll sing." She'd sing until her voice gave out if it meant that kind of money. "Good." He turned to leave, then paused. "Your voice is extraordinary, Miss Ashford. It would be a waste to keep it silent." Then he was gone, moving so quickly that Olivia wasn't sure she'd actually seen him leave. One moment he was there, the next, the doorway was empty. She stood alone in the library, her heart pounding, trying to process what had just happened. The master of Thornbury Manor had just paid her to sing. The vampire lord, who supposedly never smiled, never spoke to his staff, never showed any interest in the humans who served him, had listened to her sing a lullaby and smiled. Olivia returned to her work, but everything felt different now. She sang quietly at first, testing to see if he was still listening, then louder as her confidence grew. She sang her mother's lullabies, songs from the radio, old folk tunes she half remembered from childhood, and somewhere in the manor she knew he was listening. She didn't see him again that night, but when she checked out at 6 in the morning, Mrs. Chen handed her a sealed envelope. Inside was a contract amendment, already signed by Lord Vladimir's distinctive hand, tripling her salary effective immediately. There was also a note, written in the same elegant script. "The West Wing needs cleaning as well. You will begin there tomorrow night." Olivia read it 3 times, her hands shaking. The West Wing. His wing. The place no staff member was allowed after sunset. And he wanted her there. She went home as the sun rose over the city, crawled into bed, and dreamed of red eyes and impossible smiles. The next night, Olivia arrived at work with her stomach in knots. Mrs. Chen seemed nervous when she handed over the keys to the West Wing, warning her to be respectful, to be careful, to remember who she was dealing with, as if Olivia could forget. The West Wing was different from the rest of the manor. Where the East Wing was dusty and abandoned, preserved like a museum, the West Wing showed signs of actual use. Books left open on tables, papers scattered across desks, wine glasses that still held residue of whatever he drank. It was darker, too, the windows covered with heavy curtains that blocked out any potential sunlight. She started in what appeared to be a sitting room, dusting and polishing while her heart hammered against her ribs. She kept expecting him to appear, but he didn't. The rooms remained empty except for her. So she began to sing. She chose a modern song this time, something popular on the radio about love and longing. Her voice filled the quiet spaces, made the cold rooms feel less lonely. She moved from the sitting room to a study, from the study to what looked like a bedroom, though the bed was pristinely made and clearly hadn't been slept in. Did vampires sleep? She realized she didn't actually know anything about them beyond stories and movies, and those were probably all wrong. They're mostly correct, actually. Olivia spun around, nearly dropping her dustcloth. Lord Vladimyr was sitting in a chair by the empty fireplace, so still she'd completely missed him when she'd entered. He looked the same as last night, devastatingly beautiful and utterly inhuman, dressed in black with his white hair loose around his shoulders. "The stories, I mean," he continued. "Sunlight burns us. We drink blood. We're stronger and faster than humans, immortal, unless killed by specific means. Most of the lore is surprisingly accurate." "I didn't know you were there." Olivia's voice came out smaller than she'd intended. "I know. I didn't mean to startle you." He stood and she fought the urge to back away. "Please continue working. and singing. I find I enjoy it." There was something almost hesitant in the way he said it, as if he wasn't used to admitting he enjoyed anything. Olivia nodded and turned back to her work, though her hands were shaking. She started to sing again, softer this time, aware of his presence in a way that made her hyper-conscious of every note. "You have a question." It wasn't an accusation, just a statement. "You may ask it." Olivia paused in her dusting. "Why don't you sleep in your bed? If you don't mind me asking, my lord." "Vampires don't sleep as humans do. We rest, but we don't require beds." He moved closer, studying the titles on a nearby bookshelf. "And you may call me Silvanus when we're alone." The informality shocked her. "I couldn't, that's not appropriate. I'm giving you permission. I grow tired of titles and formality. You call me Silvanus, and I'll continue calling you Olivia. Unless you object?" She should object. This was her employer, a vampire lord who was probably older than her entire family line. But something in his tone made it sound less like an order and more like a request. "I don't object. Silvanus." His name felt strange on her tongue, intimate in a way that made her blush. He smiled again, that same expression that looked unpracticed but genuine, and Olivia felt her stomach flip. "Good. Tell me about yourself, Olivia. Why do you work nights? Why do you need the money so desperately that you took a position here, where most humans would be too afraid to stay?" She shouldn't tell him. Her problems weren't his concern, but something about the way he asked, with genuine curiosity rather than polite disinterest, made her answer honestly. "My sister, Sophie. She's 19 and she has a heart condition. She needs surgery, and even with insurance, the costs are—" She shook her head. "I'd do anything for her, even work in a manor full of vampires if that's what it takes." "There are no other vampires here, only me." He tilted his head slightly. "You love her very much." "She's all I have left. Our mother died 3 years ago, and our father left when we were children. It's just us now." "And you sacrifice your voice, your freedom, your nights, all for her." "It's not a sacrifice. It's what family does." Olivia moved to the next section of the room, trying to focus on her work rather than the intensity of his gaze. "You must have family, other vampires you're close to." "No." The word was flat, emotionless. "I have associates, allies, enemies, but no family, not for a very long time." There was a story there, Olivia could tell. Pain hidden beneath centuries of ice. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It's the nature of immortality. Everyone you love dies, so you learn not to love." He said it matter-of-factly, but Olivia heard the loneliness underneath. "That sounds horrible," she said quietly. "Existing forever, but never really living." Silvanus stared at her, those red eyes widening slightly. "What did you say?" "I just meant living isn't just breathing, is it? It's feeling things, connecting with people, loving them even if you might lose them. Otherwise, what's the point?" She realized she was lecturing a centuries-old vampire on the meaning of life and felt her cheeks heat. "I'm sorry, that was presumptuous." "No." He crossed the distance between them in an instant, and Olivia gasped. He was close enough now that she could see the details of his face, sharp cheekbones, full lips, eyes that swirled with something more than just red. "Say it again, that part about living." "Living isn't just breathing?" Her voice wavered. "I haven't felt alive since the night I died," he said softly, "until I heard you sing. And then, for just a moment, I remembered what it was like to feel something other than emptiness." Olivia's breath caught. This close, she could feel the cold radiating from him, could see that his chest didn't rise and fall with breath. He was everything the stories said, a creature of death, beautiful and terrible, but his eyes looked almost human in their vulnerability. "Sing for me again," he said. "Please." She did. She sang while he listened, while he stood close enough that she could have reached out and touched him. She sang songs about love and loss, about hope and heartbreak, pouring emotion into every note. And when she finished, there were tears on his cheeks, crystalline and cold, but tears nonetheless. "I didn't know I could still cry," he whispered. That night marked a change in Thornbury Manor. Olivia came to work and went straight to the West Wing, where Silvanus waited for her. She would clean while she sang, and he would listen, sometimes asking questions about the songs, about her life, about the world outside the manor. He told her stories in return about the night he was turned, about the vampire courts and their politics, about centuries of existence in a world that no longer felt real to him. They developed a routine. She would arrive at 11, and he would be waiting in whatever room she was scheduled to clean that night. Sometimes he watched in silence. Sometimes he asked her to teach him the songs so he could remember the melodies after she left. Sometimes he simply talked, sharing pieces of his immortal life with someone who listened without judgment. Olivia found herself looking forward to work in a way she never had before. Not just for the money, though that was still crucial. Sophie's surgery was scheduled for next month, fully funded now. But for him, for Silvanus, who smiled more easily each night, who seemed to become more human the more time they spent together. She learned that he loved literature, but hadn't read anything written in the last 50 years, that he could play piano beautifully, but never did because the music felt empty without an audience, that he was lonely in a way she couldn't fully comprehend, isolated by power and immortality from any genuine connection. She learned that she was falling in love with him, and it terrified her. It was madness, of course. He was a vampire, a lord, a creature who would exist long after she turned to dust. She was human, temporary, nothing special except for a voice he happened to like. There was no future in this, but her heart didn't seem to care about logic. 3 weeks into their new arrangement, Olivia was cleaning Silvanus's private study when she found the portrait. It was covered by a cloth in the corner, clearly hidden away deliberately. Curiosity got the better of her, and she lifted the cloth to peek underneath. The painting showed a young woman, human, with dark curls and laughing eyes. She wore a dress from centuries past and held a single red rose. She was beautiful in a way that made Olivia's chest ache with inadequacy. Her name was Catherine. Silvanus's voice came from behind her, making her jump. She'd gotten used to his sudden appearances, but this time there was something different in his tone. Sadness. She was my fiancée, before I was turned. Olivia carefully lowered the cloth. What happened to her? I killed her. He said it simply, without emotion, but Olivia could see the pain in his eyes. Not intentionally. I lost control when I was newly turned, drained her dry before I even realized what I was doing. The vampire who made me thought it was funny teaching me that I was a monster by making me destroy the one person I loved. Silvanus. Olivia's heart broke for him. I tell you this so you understand, he continued, moving to stand by the window, his back to her. I'm not safe, Olivia. I may seem controlled, civilized, but I am fundamentally a predator. Every night you're here singing, standing close to me, I can hear your heartbeat. I can smell your blood. And part of me, the part that will always be a monster, wants it. But you haven't hurt me. Not yet. He turned to face her, and his eyes glowed brighter in the darkness. But I want to. Not just your blood. I want you in ways I have no right to want. I want to keep you here, in this manner, forever. I want to turn you so you'll never leave, never age, never die, and leave me alone again. These are not the thoughts of someone who cares for your well-being. Olivia should have been terrified. Any sane person would have run. But she understood what he was really saying, that he cared about her, and it scared him. That he wanted her to leave before he did something they'd both regret. What if I don't want to leave? The words came out before she could stop them. Then you're a fool. But there was no heat in the insult, only desperation. You have a life, a sister who needs you, a future. Don't throw it away for a monster who can't even give you sunlight. You're not a monster. I am. The words came out as a roar, and suddenly he was across the room, gripping her shoulders, not hard enough to hurt, but firmly enough that she couldn't move. His eyes blazed crimson, and she could see his fangs. I have killed hundreds of humans, Olivia, fed on them, used them, felt nothing when they died. I'm exactly what the stories say, a creature of darkness who destroys everything he touches. Then why haven't you destroyed me? She asked it calmly, though her heart was racing. You've had weeks. I've been alone with you every night. If you're such a monster, why am I still alive? He stared at her, his grip loosening. Because you make me feel human again, and I am selfish enough to want to keep feeling that way, even knowing I shouldn't. So keep me. She raised her hand slowly, giving him time to pull away, and placed it against his cold cheek. Let me stay, not as your victim or your property, but as whatever this is between us. You don't know what you're asking. Then tell me. Explain it to me, but don't push me away because you're afraid. You've been alone for centuries. Silvanus, don't choose to be alone again. For a long moment he didn't move. Then, slowly, he leaned into her touch, his eyes closing. I want to court you, he said quietly. Properly. The way I would have when I was human. I want to give you time to be sure, to understand what you'd be choosing. But Olivia, I need you to know, if you let me love you, I will never let you go. I am too selfish, too possessive. You would be mine in every way that matters. And would you be mine? Her voice was barely a whisper. His eyes opened, and the intensity in them stole her breath. I have been yours since the moment I heard you sing. My heart doesn't beat, but if it did, it would beat for you. Olivia knew this was insane. She'd known him less than a month. He was a vampire, a lord, an immortal being who'd lived through centuries. But she also knew what she felt, and she'd learned young that life was too short to waste on fear. Then court me, she said. Show me what it means to be loved by Silvanus Vladimyr. The smile that crossed his face was radiant. It would be my honor. True to his word, Silvanus courted her with the old-fashioned dedication of someone who'd learned romance in a different era. He couldn't take her to restaurants or movies daylight, and crowds were both problematic, but he found other ways. He had the ballroom opened and hired musicians to play while he taught her dances from the 18th century. He filled her workroom with flowers that bloomed only at night. He read poetry to her in languages she didn't understand, then translated while she worked, his voice turning ancient words into modern devotion. He learned what she liked: chocolate and old books and rain against the windows, and provided all of it. The manor's kitchen, which had been virtually unused for decades, suddenly came alive with baked goods because he discovered she loved sweets. The library expanded with contemporary novels because he wanted to discuss them with her. He commissioned a telescope for the gardens so they could watch the stars together during her breaks. But more than the gifts, he gave her himself. He let her see his vulnerabilities, his fears, his struggles with the monster he believed himself to be. He told her about the vampire politics he navigated, the territorial disputes and blood feuds that defined his world. He introduced her to his study of human history, showing her journals he'd kept over centuries, offering her a glimpse into the man he'd been and the creature he'd become. Olivia fell deeper in love with every passing night. She loved his dry humor, the way he listened with complete focus when she talked about Sophie's progress or her worries about the surgery. She loved that he asked her opinion on his business decisions as if her thoughts mattered. She loved the way he looked at her like she was something precious and impossible, a miracle he couldn't quite believe was real. Sophie's surgery came and went successfully. Olivia took a week off to be with her sister during recovery, and every day a messenger arrived with flowers and a note from Silvanus. The notes were simple but heartfelt. Thinking of you, missing your voice. Come home soon. On the 5th day, he sent a private nurse to help with Sophie's care, refusing to let Olivia pay for it. When she tried to argue via text, he simply replied, "Your sister's health is important to you, therefore it is important to me. Accept the help." Sophie recovered quickly, and once she was stable, Olivia finally told her about Silvanus. She'd been dreading the conversation. "How did you explain to your teenage sister that you were in love with a vampire?" But Sophie surprised her. I know," Sophie said, grinning from her hospital bed. "Olivia, a mysterious lord sends you flowers every day and hired a private nurse for me. Plus, you've been smiling non-stop for weeks. I'm sick, not stupid." "You're not scared?" Olivia asked. "Should I be? He makes you happy, happier than I've seen you since Mom died, and he clearly cares about you if he's helping me too." Sophie reached for her sister's hand. "You deserve this, Liv. You've spent 3 years putting your life on hold for me. If you found someone who makes you light up like that, vampire or not, I'm not going to tell you to walk away." "I love him," Olivia admitted. "I know it's fast and complicated and probably insane." "Love usually is," Sophie squeezed her hand. "Just promise me you'll be careful and that I get to meet him eventually." "He'd like that. He's actually nervous about meeting you." Sophie laughed. A centuries-old vampire lord is nervous about meeting me? You're important to me, so you're important to him. It's how he thinks. Olivia smiled. He's actually incredibly sweet once you get past the whole immortal predator thing. When Olivia returned to Thornbury Manor the following week, Silvanus was waiting for her in the entrance hall. He was across the space in an instant, pulling her into his arms with a desperation that surprised her. His body was cold as always, but the embrace was warm in its intensity. "I missed you," he said into her hair. "The manor felt dead without you." "It's only been a week," but she wrapped her arms around him, breathing in his scent, old books and winter nights, and something uniquely him. "A week is a lifetime when you're used to waiting." He pulled back enough to look at her face, his hands cradling her cheeks. "How is Sophie?" "Good, recovering well. She wants to meet you." Something vulnerable flashed in his eyes. "Truly." "Truly. I told her about us and she gave her blessing, though she did threaten to stake you if you hurt me." Silvanus laughed, a real, genuine laugh that transformed his face. "I like her already. When can I meet her?" They arranged it for the following weekend. Silvanus had a car service bring Sophie to the manor after sunset, and Olivia waited nervously in the sitting room while he greeted her sister at the door. She heard Sophie's voice, bright and curious, asking questions about the manor's architecture, and then they were entering the room. Silvanus looked nervous, which was almost funny. This was a vampire lord who negotiated with ancient creatures and ruled over territories, but he was worried about making a good impression on a 19-year-old girl. "Sophie, this is Silvanus Vladimyr." "Silvanus, my sister Sophie." Sophie stared at him with wide eyes, taking in the white hair, the pale skin, the otherworldly beauty. Then she grinned. "You're really pale, like, really pale. Do you sparkle?" Silvanus blinked, taken aback. No? Should I?" "It's a reference," Olivia said quickly, "to a book series. She's teasing you." "Ah." He relaxed slightly, a hint of amusement in his eyes. "No sparkling, I'm afraid. Just the standard vampiric features: fangs, strength, speed, and an unfortunate aversion to sunlight." "Can you turn into a bat?" "No." "Shame. That would be cool." Sophie moved further into the room, studying everything with open curiosity. "This place is amazing. How old is it?" "About 300 years. I had it built shortly after I settled in England." He watched Sophie carefully, and Olivia realized he was trying to gauge whether she approved of him. "Would you like a tour?" Sophie's eyes lit up, and for the next hour Silvanus showed them through parts of the manor Olivia had never seen. Hidden passages, a wine cellar that was actually a blood bank, an armory filled with weapons from various centuries. He answered every question Sophie asked, and she asked many with patience and surprising humor. By the time they returned to the sitting room for tea and snacks, Sophie was completely charmed. "Okay," Sophie said, settling onto the couch with a plate of cookies. "I approve. You can date my sister." Silvanus looked genuinely relieved. "Thank you. Your opinion matters a great deal to me. Just so we're clear, you hurt her, I hunt you down. I don't care if you're immortal. I'll find a way." "Noted. Though I assure you, I would rather face final death than cause Olivia pain." Sophie studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Yeah, you really love her, I can tell." She looked at Olivia. "He's good people, Liv, or good vampire, whatever." Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. Having her sister's blessing meant everything, and seeing Silvanus interact with Sophie, patiently answering her questions, making sure she was comfortable, treating her with genuine kindness, only made her love him more. After Sophie left, Silvanus found Olivia in the library, staring out at the night garden. He came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for sharing that part of your life with me, for letting me meet her. Thank you for being so kind to her. I know you were nervous." "Terrified," he admitted. "I wanted her to like me, to approve. I know I'm not what anyone would choose for you, a vampire, a killer, someone who can't even walk in daylight." "You're exactly what I choose." Olivia turned in his arms, facing him. "Every part of you, Silvanus, the vampire and the man, the darkness and the light, all of it." He kissed her then, for the first time. His lips were cold but soft, the kiss gentle and reverent, as if she were something sacred. Olivia melted into him, her hands finding his hair, pulling him closer. The kiss deepened, and she felt his fangs graze her lower lip, a reminder of what he was, but it didn't scare her. Nothing about him scared her anymore. When they broke apart, both breathless in different ways, Silvanus rested his forehead against hers. "I love you, Olivia Ashford. I have loved you since you sang in the library, and I will love you until the stars burn out." "I love you too," she whispered. "My vampire king." Not a king, just a man who found something worth living for. The weeks that followed were the happiest of Olivia's life. She still worked nights, but now it felt less like a job and more like coming home. She and Silvanus spent hours together, talking and laughing and discovering each other. He taught her about vampire history and showed her parts of his world she'd never imagined. She taught him about modern technology and introduced him to contemporary music and made him watch movies he found bewildering but endearing. They navigated the physical aspects of their relationship carefully. Silvanus was always conscious of his strength, his coldness, his predatory nature. The first time Olivia offered to let him feed from her, he refused. "I won't use you like that," he said firmly. "You're not food, Olivia. You're everything. But you need to feed. Where do you get blood if not from humans?" "There are blood banks. Donors who work with vampires willingly, for payment. It's handled through the Vampire Council." He cupped her face gently. "I appreciate the offer, but I need you to understand feeding is intimate for vampires. It's not just sustenance, it's connection. And if I were to drink from you, I don't know if I could stop. The risk is too great." She understood, even if part of her wanted to offer him that intimacy. They found other ways to be close, learning each other's boundaries and desires. Silvanus was an attentive lover, careful with his strength, making sure she was never cold, always asking if she was comfortable. And Olivia learned how to touch him, how to make him smile, how to draw reactions from someone who'd spent centuries feeling nothing. 4 months into their relationship, Silvanus asked her to move into the manor permanently, not as an employee, but as his partner. Olivia said yes without hesitation, though she kept her apartment for Sophie to use when she visited. The staff adjusted to the change quickly. Mrs. Chen seemed pleased that Silvanus had finally found companionship, and the rest of the household treated Olivia with newfound respect as the Lord's chosen companion. Life settled into a beautiful routine. Olivia spent her days sleeping and her nights with Silvanus, existing in his nocturnal world. She met other vampires cautiously at first, always under Silvanus's protective watch. Most of them were curious about the human who'd captured Lord Vladimir's heart. Some were disdainful. One, a female vampire named Zephyra, was openly hostile. "You've made him weak," Zephyr said during a gathering at the manor. She was beautiful in the way all vampires were ethereal, and dangerous with black hair and golden eyes. The Silvanus Vladimyr I knew would never have shackled himself to a mortal. "He's not shackled," Olivia replied calmly, though her heart was racing. "And he's not weak. He's happy. Happiness is a weakness. Love is a weakness. You've turned one of the most powerful vampire lords in Europe into a love-sick puppy." Zephyr stepped closer, her eyes glowing. "How long do you think you'll last, little human? 50 years? 60? You'll wither and die while he remains unchanged. What then?" "That's enough." Silvanus appeared between them, his presence radiating cold fury. "You will not speak to her that way." "I'm only saying what everyone's thinking," Zephyr said. "This is madness, Silvanus. Turn her or let her go. But don't pretend this half-life you're living is sustainable. My relationship with Olivia is none of your concern. It is when it affects vampire politics. The other lords are talking. They say you've gone soft, that you're vulnerable now. There are those who would use your attachment to her against you." Silvanus's eyes blazed crimson. "Let them try. Anyone who threatens Olivia will face me, and I promise they will regret it." Zephyr studied him for a long moment, then shook her head. "You really do love her. How unexpected." She looked at Olivia. "I apologize for my harsh words. I simply worry about my old friend. But I see now that you make him happy in a way I never could." After Zephyr left, Olivia and Silvanus stood together in the quiet ballroom. "Is she right?" Olivia asked. "Are you vulnerable because of me?" No, I'm stronger because of you. I have something to protect now, something to fight for. He pulled her close. But she's not wrong about one thing. The other lords are watching. Some will try to use you against me. Then we'll face them together. I won't let anyone hurt you, Olivia. I'll burn the world down first. The protectiveness in his voice should have been frightening, but Olivia found it comforting. She knew Silvanus would do anything to keep her safe, just as she would do anything for him. The threat came 2 weeks later. Olivia was in the library when she heard the commotion shouting, the sound of furniture breaking, Silvanus's roar of fury. She ran toward the noise and found the entrance hall in chaos. 3 vampires she didn't recognize were there, facing off against Silvanus. He was positioned between them and the stairs between them and her. "Where is she?" one of the vampires demanded. He was tall with red hair and eyes that glowed like fire. "Give us the human, Vladimyr." "You'll have to go through me." Silvanus's voice was deadly calm. "That can be arranged." The vampire moved with inhuman speed, but Silvanus was faster. They collided in a blur of motion, and Olivia screamed as they crashed through a wall. The other 2 vampires started toward the stairs toward her. Olivia ran, her mind racing. She needed to hide, to find somewhere safe, while Silvanus dealt with the intruders. But one of the vampires caught her before she made it to the 2nd floor, yanking her back with painful force. "Got her!" the vampire called out, and Olivia struggled in his grip. Then Silvanus was there, and Olivia had never seen him like this. His eyes burned crimson, his fangs were fully extended, and the cold that radiated from him was intense enough to frost the air. He ripped the vampire away from Olivia with such force that the creature went flying across the hall. "You dare!" Silvanus growled, and his voice was barely human. "You come into my home. You threaten what is mine. You touch her." The red-haired vampire picked himself up from the rubble. "We were sent by Lord Caius. He wants to test your resolve. See if you're still worthy of your territory, or if you've been weakened by human sentiment. Tell Caius he can test my resolve in person, and he can bring an army when he does, because he'll need it." Silvanus moved to stand in front of Olivia again, shielding her. "Now leave, before I forget the laws that prevent me from killing you where you stand." The vampires left, but their message was clear. Olivia's presence had made Silvanus a target. After the attackers were gone and the manor was secure again, Silvanus held Olivia while she shook. He carried her to his bedroom and simply held her, stroking her hair and murmuring reassurances. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "I brought this danger into your life. I should have known this would happen." "It's not your fault." Olivia pulled back to look at him. "Who is Lord Caius?" "A rival. He's wanted my territory for decades, but never had cause to challenge me directly. Now he thinks you're my weakness." Silvanus's jaw tightened. "He's wrong. You're my strength. But that won't stop him from trying to use you against me. What do we do?" "I call a council meeting. Make it clear that any threat to you is a threat to me, and that I will respond with full force. And then," he hesitated, his eyes searching hers, "then I give you a choice." "What kind of choice?" "I can turn you, Olivia, make you vampire. You'd be immortal, powerful, safe from anyone who might try to hurt you to get to me. You'd be my equal in every way." He touched her face gently. "But you'd also lose the sun, lose the ability to have children, to grow old naturally, to remain human. It's not a decision to make lightly." Olivia's mind reeled. She'd known this might come up eventually, the question of immortality, of what happened when her human lifespan became an issue. But she'd thought they'd have more time. "I need to think about it," she said, "and talk to Sophie. This affects her too." "Of course. Take all the time you need. I'll keep you safe, regardless of what you decide." The council meeting happened 3 days later. Silvanus brought Olivia with him, despite the risk, because he wanted the other vampire lords to see what she meant to him. The gathering was held in a mansion in London, in a grand hall that looked like something out of a gothic novel. 12 vampire lords were present, representing different territories across Europe. They were all beautiful and terrifying, ancient creatures who looked at Olivia with varying degrees of curiosity and disdain. Lord Caius was there, a vampire with silver hair and ice-blue eyes, radiating cold authority. He looked at Olivia like she was an insect. "So this is the human who's captured your heart," Caius said. "She seems remarkably ordinary for someone who's caused such a stir." "She's extraordinary," Silvanus replied, "and she is under my protection, as are all members of my household. Any threat to her is an act of war against me." Bold words, but can you back them up? You've grown soft, Vladimir, predictable. Your attachment to this human makes you vulnerable. Then test that theory, challenge me, but know that I will not show mercy. The room went silent. Vampire challenges were serious, often fought to the death. Caius studied Silvanus carefully, clearly weighing his options. "Perhaps another time," Caius said finally. "I have no wish to destroy an old friend over a human pet." Silvanus moved so fast, Olivia barely saw it. One moment he was beside her, the next he had Caius by the throat, lifting him off the ground. "She is not a pet. She is my chosen companion, and you will show her respect." The other lords shifted, ready to intervene, but an elderly vampire at the head of the table raised her hand. "Enough. Silvanus, release Lord Caius. Caius, you will apologize to Miss Ashford." Silvanus dropped Caius, who straightened his clothes with as much dignity as he could muster. "My apologies," he said to Olivia, though his eyes were murderous. The elderly vampire turned to Olivia. "I am Lady Seraphine, head of the European Vampire Council. Tell me, child, what do you see in our cold friend Silvanus?" Olivia stood, refusing to be intimidated. "I see someone who's lived for centuries, but only started living when he let himself feel again. I see someone who's kind and thoughtful, and who makes me laugh. I see someone I love, vampire or not." Seraphine smiled. "And would you become one of us? Join him in immortality?" "I don't know yet," Olivia answered honestly. "It's a huge decision. But whether I'm human or vampire, I'll stand by him." "Interesting." Seraphine looked at Silvanus. "You have chosen well, old friend. This one has courage." She addressed the council. "Let it be known Olivia Ashford is under the protection of this council. Any vampire who harms her will answer to all of us. Silvanus's claim is recognized." It was more than Olivia had expected. The tension in the room eased slightly, though Caius still looked furious. The meeting concluded without further incident, and Silvanus escorted Olivia out quickly. "You were magnificent," he said once they were in the car heading back to the manor. "Standing up to them like that. I was so proud of you." "I was terrified," Olivia admitted, "but I wasn't going to let them see that. You are braver than any warrior I've known." He took her hand, interlacing their fingers. "Have you thought more about the choice? I don't mean to pressure you, but after tonight, I know. And yes, I've been thinking about it constantly." She took a deep breath. "I talked to Sophie. She said she supports whatever I decide, but she asked me to wait, just a little while longer. She wants to live with me as humans, just for a bit before I change." "That's completely reasonable." "You're sure? I know it would be safer if I was a vampire." "I'm sure. I've waited centuries, Olivia. I can wait a few more years if that's what you need. Your relationship with your sister is precious. I won't ask you to sacrifice that." Olivia loved him even more for understanding. They agreed on a timeline: 5 years, enough time for Sophie to finish university, to establish herself, to have her sister fully present for that part of her life. Then, when Sophie was independent and settled, Olivia would make her choice. Those 5 years were the best of Olivia's life. She and Silvanus built a life together in the manor, finding joy in the small moments. She learned to navigate vampire society, becoming known as Lady Vladimyr, even though they weren't officially married by human standards. Vampires didn't have traditional marriages, but Silvanus gave her a ring, an ancient ruby that had belonged to his mother, and declared her his eternal companion in front of the council. That was binding enough. Sophie flourished. She graduated university with honors, got a job at a museum, and even started dating a kind man named Thomas. She visited the manor often, and Silvanus treated her like the sister he'd never had. He paid for her wedding when she and Thomas got engaged, walked her down the aisle because their father wasn't there to do it, and gave a toast that made everyone cry. "To Sophie," he said at the reception, raising his glass, "who gave me her blessing when I had no right to ask for it, who welcomed a monster into her family and called him friend, and who loves her sister as fiercely as I do. May your marriage be filled with all the joy and love you both deserve." After the wedding, Sophie pulled Olivia aside. "You know he's going to be the best vampire brother-in-law ever, right?" Olivia laughed through her tears. "Yeah, I know. Are you ready? For the change, I mean. It's almost time." It was true. 5 years had passed faster than Olivia expected. She was 28 now, and Sophie was 24 and settled in her new life. The time they'd agreed on had come. "I'm ready," Olivia said. "Scared, but ready." "Good. Because you two are disgustingly perfect together, and I want you to have forever." Sophie hugged her tight. "I love you, Liv, both as you are now and as whatever you become." The turning ceremony was planned for the next new moon. Silvanus explained the process carefully. He would drain most of her blood, then give her his. She would die, technically, and then wake as a vampire. It would be painful, he warned, and there was a small risk of something going wrong. But he'd done it before, centuries ago, and he'd make sure it went perfectly. "Are you absolutely certain?" he asked the night before. They were in the garden, under the stars, holding each other close. "Once this is done, there's no going back. You'll be vampire forever." "I've never been more certain of anything." Olivia looked up at him. "I want forever with you, Silvanus. I want centuries of nights together, of watching the world change, of loving you. I'm ready to become what you are." "You'll never see the sun again. I'll see stars instead, that's enough." He kissed her then, deep and passionate, pouring centuries of loneliness and love into the gesture. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I will make you so happy," he promised. "Every night for the rest of eternity, I will make sure you know you are loved." The next night, surrounded by candles in Silvanus's bedroom, Olivia lay down and prepared for her transformation. Sophie was there, along with Lady Seraphine, who'd offered to supervise to ensure everything went smoothly. Silvanus sat beside Olivia, holding her hand. "Last chance to change your mind," he said softly. "Not a chance." She smiled at him. "Turn me. Make me yours forever." He bent to her neck, his fangs extending. "I love you, Olivia Ashford, in this life and the next. I love you too." The bite was sharp, but not as painful as she'd expected. She felt her blood leaving, felt herself getting weaker. Silvanus was careful, controlled, taking only what was needed. When he pulled back, his wrist was already cut, blood welling dark and red. "Drink," he said, pressing it to her lips. Olivia drank. His blood was cold and tasted like metal and something ancient, but she swallowed it down. The world started to fade, everything going dark and quiet. She heard Sophie crying, heard Seraphine murmuring something in Latin, heard Silvanus whispering words of love. Then, nothing. Olivia woke to a world transformed. Everything was sharper, clearer, more vivid than she'd ever experienced. She could hear the individual heartbeats of Sophie and Seraphine in the room, could smell their blood and 1,000 other scents. The darkness that had filled the room was gone. She could see perfectly, every detail illuminated as if by daylight. And she was cold, so cold, but not uncomfortably so, just different. Silvanus was leaning over her, his face filled with hope and fear. "Olivia, can you hear me?" She sat up, testing her new body. She felt strong, powerful, like she could leap across the room or tear through a wall. "I can hear everything. It's incredible." Relief flooded his features. "You're all right. The transition was successful." Olivia looked at her hands, paler now, alabaster white. She could see the veins underneath, could feel the absence of a heartbeat. She was vampire now, immortal, and it felt right. "How do you feel?" Sophie asked, staying a careful distance away. "Different. Good. Really good, actually." Olivia looked at Silvanus. "Is it always like this?" "The heightened senses will calm down after a few days, but yes, this is your new existence." He helped her stand, steadying her when she wobbled. "We'll need to teach you control, how to manage the hunger, how to move through the world safely." "But first," Seraphine said, "we celebrate. You've joined our ranks, Olivia Vladimyr. Welcome to immortality." The days that followed were an adjustment. Olivia learned to control her new strength, her speed, her senses. She learned to feed from blood bags provided by the Vampire Council, though Silvanus offered to let her drink from him when the hunger got too intense. She learned how to exist as a vampire, how to move through human spaces without drawing attention, how to navigate vampire politics with her new status. But mostly, she learned what it meant to have forever. She and Silvanus fell into a new rhythm, one that felt eternal and perfect. They traveled the world together, visiting places Silvanus had lived centuries ago and new locations Olivia had always wanted to see. They collected art and books, filled the manor with treasures from their adventures. They made love under the stars and talked until dawn, sharing everything. Sophie and Thomas visited often, and while it was strange at first seeing her sister age while Olivia remained frozen, they adapted. Sophie had children eventually, and Olivia became the aunt who never aged, who told stories of far-off places and taught them about the beauty of the night. She watched her nieces and nephews grow up, saw Sophie become a grandmother, held her sister's hand when Thomas passed away from old age, and through it all, Silvanus was there. Her constant, her love, her eternal companion. He kept his promise every night for decades, then centuries. He made sure she knew she was loved. They faced challenges together, navigated vampire politics, defended their territory from those who would challenge them. They built a life that spanned generations, watching the world change while their love remained constant. On their 100th anniversary together, Silvanus took Olivia back to the library where they had first met. It looked the same as it had that night, moonlight streaming through the windows, books lining every wall, the same Persian rugs on the floor. "Do you remember?" he asked. "The night you sang while you scrubbed?" Olivia smiled. "How could I forget? You appeared in the doorway like death itself, and I thought I was going to be fired. I thought I was going to send you away. Instead, you gave me back my smile, my laughter, my ability to feel." He pulled her close. "You gave me back my life, Olivia. Even though I was dead, you made me live again. You did the same for me. You taught me that love isn't about being safe or practical. It's about finding someone who makes you want to be brave. Sing for me," he asked as he had that first night. "Like you did before?" So Olivia sang. The same lullaby about moonlight and roses, about a girl who danced with shadows and chose the darkness. Her voice was different now, stronger, clearer, enhanced by her vampiric nature. But the emotion was the same, the love and joy and gratitude for this impossible life they'd built together. When she finished, Silvanus was smiling that same smile, the one he'd never worn until he met her. "I will never tire of hearing you sing," he said. "Not in 100 years or 1,000 or 10,000. Your voice will always be the most beautiful sound in the world to me. And you will always be my icy vampire king who learned to smile." "Not icy anymore," he corrected, kissing her forehead. "You melted the ice, remember? Now I'm just yours." They stood together in the library, two immortal beings who'd found something more precious than eternity. They'd found each other. And as the moon rose over Thornbury Manor, casting its silver light through the windows, they knew that whatever came next, whatever challenges or joys the future held, they would face it together, forever. The manor continued to stand through the centuries, a testament to their love. Staff came and went, human lifetimes passing in what felt like moments to the two vampires who called it home. But some things never changed. Every night, without fail, Olivia would sing while she moved through the manor. Sometimes she sang while dusting, like that first night. Sometimes she sang while they danced in the ballroom, or while they sat together in the library, or while they walked through the gardens. And every time she sang, Silvanus would smile. That genuine, radiant smile that had been lost for centuries and found again in the voice of a plus-size maid who'd scrubbed floors and stolen the heart of a vampire king. Their love story became legend among vampires, the tale of the icy Lord Vladimyr who never smiled until a human maid sang and melted his frozen heart. Young vampires would ask if it was true, if love could really change someone so completely. And the older vampires, the ones who'd witnessed their devotion over the centuries, would smile knowingly and say yes. Yes, it was all true. Because some loves are powerful enough to conquer even death. Some connections transcend mortality and time. And some songs are beautiful enough to make even the coldest heart remember what it means to be alive. Silvanus and Olivia had found that love, that connection, that song. And they would sing it together, night after night, for all of eternity.